Hi, my name's Rachel, and today we're doing another Authors Behaving Badly. Today's author is Jeanine Cummins. She is the author of American Dirt, the discussion about which understandably set the internet on fire in 2020. Jeanine, who is not Mexican, wrote a story about a Mexican mother named Lydia and her son Luca fleeing their home in Acapulco, Mexico, due to violence upon their family from the cartel. A little bit of backstory, Jeanine is a U.S. citizen. She was born in Spain, but she is not Spanish. Her father was in the Navy, and American Dirt was not her first book. She published a memoir in 2004 called A Rip in Heaven, a Memoir of a Murder, and its aftermath, which details her family's experience when Jeanine was 16. Her brother and their two cousins were assaulted. Her brother is the only survivor of this assault. One of her cousins was sexually assaulted, and the two cousins were both murdered. She's also the author of two fiction books, which came out in 2010 and 2013. And then American Dirt came along, which was a book that had a massive bidding war over it in publishing. 9 publishers were in a bidding war over this book. Ultimately, Flatiron Books bought it, which is a imprint of Macmillan, and they bought it in a deal with a 7-figure advance, which is huge. That's very uncommon. And Jeanine was motivated to write American Dirt because of the things that she witnessed in her time as a foster parent. If you look on Jeanine's Twitter, even today, there is still a pinned tweet from 2018 with an article that she wrote for the New York Times called "If It Could Happen to Them, Why Can't It Happen to Us?" A former foster mother writes about being part of a child's trauma and what the migrant children separated from their parents must feel. I'm not going to read the article because the New York Times won't let me access it because I don't pay for a subscription anymore. The point is, there is an article about her experiences as a foster parent, and this is what led her to want to write about this in a fictionalized setting, which came to be as American Dirt. So this book had publishing doing immense work to promote it. Early reviews were raving about this book. It was an Oprah book club pick.
The anticipated book club selection only on CBS this morning. Oprah, drum roll, please.
It is American Dirt, American Dirt, American Dirt by Jeanine Cummins.
Yes.
I love it so much.
Why?
Well, first of all,
Hi, Jeanine Cummins.
Hi, Jeanine Cummins, who is here as well.
From the very first sentence, one of the very first bullets comes in through the open window above the toilet where Luca is standing. I was in from the very first sentence.
We should say this book is receiving critical acclaim for its powerful portrayal of a migrant's journey across the border to the U.S. It focuses on the story of Lydia, a mother who escapes from Mexico with her son after surviving a brutal attack by a drug cartel.
And then a month before release, a review comes out from author Myriam, who is a Chicana author. I will link Myriam's discussion about this below, where she talks about the experience of reading and reviewing American Dirt. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to read some parts of it. I encourage you to go read it. I learned about American Dirt when an editor at a feminist magazine invited me to review it. Before giving me a chance to turn to chapter 1, a publisher's letter made me wince. The first time Jeanine and I ever talked on the phone, the publisher gushed. She said migrants at the Mexican border were being portrayed as a faceless brown mass. She said she wanted to give these people a face. The phrase "these people" pissed me off so bad my blood became carbonated. I penned my review, I submitted, I waited. After a few days, an editor responded. She wrote that though my takedown of Dirt was spectacular, I lacked the fame to pen something so negative. She offered to reconsider if I changed my wording if I wrote something redeeming. Because the nicest thing I can say about Dirt is that its pages ought to be upcycled as toilet paper, the editors hauled out the guillotine. I was notified that I'd be paid a kill fee, 30% of the $650 I was initially offered for my services. Behold my unpublishable cruelty as it rises from the dead. In Mexico, busy people drink licuados. Making these beverages requires baseline skills. Drop fruit, milk, and ice into a blender and voila, a meal on the go. Unfortunately, Jeanine Cummins' narco novel American Dirt is a literary licuado that tastes like its title. Damn, that is K.O. Go Myriam. Cummins plops overly ripe Mexican stereotypes, among them the Latin lover, the suffering mother, and the stoic man-child, into her wannabe realistic prose. Toxic hetero-romanticism gives the sludge an arc because the white gaze taints her prose. Cummins positions the United States of America as a magnetic sanctuary, a beacon towards which the story chronologically chugs. Mexico bad, USA good. I pinched my metaphorical nose and read. God, she's so good at this. Cummins bombards with cliches from the get-go. Chapter 1 starts with assassins opening fire on a quinceañera. a 15th birthday party, a scene one can easily imagine President Donald Trump breathlessly conjuring at a Midwestern rally. And while Cummins' executioners are certainly animated, their humanity remains shallow. By categorizing these characters as the modern boogeyman of urban Mexico, she flattens them. By invoking monsters with English names and European lineages, Cummins reveals the color of her intended audience, white. With their family annihilated by narco-traffickers, mother and son embark on a refugee's journey. They head north, or as Cummins often writes, to El Norte, and italicized Spanish words like carajo, mijo, and amigo litter the prose, yielding the same effect as store-bought taco seasoning. It shocks Lydia to learn that the mysterious and wealthy patron who frequents her bookstore flanked by, quote, thuggish bodyguards is the capo of the local drug cartel. It shocks Lydia to learn that some Central Americans migrate to the United States by foot. It shocks Lydia to learn that men rape female migrants en route to the United States. It shocks Lydia to learn that Mexico City has an ice skating rink. This surprise gave me a good chuckle. I learned to ice skate in Mexico. That Lydia is so shocked by her own country's day-to-day realities that I'm intimate with as a Chicana living in El Norte, gives the impression that Lydia might not be a credible Mexican. In fact, she perceives her own country through the eyes of a pearl-clutching American tourist. Susan Sontag wrote that a sensibility as distinct from an idea is one of the hardest things to talk about. With this challenge in mind, I assert that American Dirt fails to convey any Mexican sensibility. It aspires to be Dia de los Muertos, but instead embodies Halloween. The proof rests in the novel's painful humorlessness. Mexicans have over 100 nicknames for death. Most of them are playful because death is our favorite playmate. And Octavio Paz explained that our unique relationship with La Muerte when he wrote, "The Mexican is familiar with death. He jokes about it, caresses it, sleeps with it, celebrates it. It is one of his favorite toys and his most steadfast love." Cummins' failure to approach death with appropriate curiosity and humility is what makes American Dirt a perfect read for your local self-righteous gringa book club. Writer Alexander Chee has said that writers interested in exploring the realities of those unlike themselves should answer 3 questions before proceeding. These are, why do you want to write from this character's point of view? Do you read writers from this community currently? Why do you want to tell this story? A glance at recent interviews shows Cummins now identifying as Latinx, her claim to this identity hinging on the existence of a Puerto Rican grandmother. Cummins, however, is still breaking in her Latinxness because 4 years ago she wasn't. I repeat, 4 years ago Cummins was white. "I don't want to write about race," Cummins wrote in a 2015 New York Times op-ed. "What I mean is, I really don't want to write about race. I am white. I'll never know the impotent rage of being profiled or encounter institutionalized hurdles to success because of my skin or hair or name." In this article from 2015, Cummins is talking about the murder of her cousins. So here's what she said in the article. "I have written about this story before, but there's one element I have always avoided: race. For almost 25 years, I asserted that race has no place in the discussion of what happened to my family. I still don't want to write about race. What I mean is, I really don't want to write about race. I'm terrified of striking the wrong chord, of being vulnerable, of uncovering shameful ignorance in my psyche. I'm afraid of being misinterpreted. I am white. The grandmother I shared with Julie and Robin was Puerto Rican. But in every practical way, my family is mostly white. I'll never know the impotent range of being profiled or encounter institutionalized hurdles to success because of my skin or hair or name. But I care about race and equality, and it's imperative for white people to join the conversation about racism. Discomfort is the least of our obligations." Back to Myriam's piece, she says, by her own admission, Cummins lacked the qualifications to write Dirt, and she did it anyways for a 7-figure sum. A 7-figure sum. Dirt is a Frankenstein of a book, a clumsy and distorted spectacle, and while some white critics have compared Cummins to Steinbeck, I think a more apt comparison is to Vanilla Ice. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Imperative Entertainment, a production banner notorious for having teamed up with the likes of libertarian cowboy Clint Eastwood, has acquired the rights to the Mexican migrant drama novel. That is true. Clint Eastwood did acquire the rights to American Dirt. Because my catastrophic imagination is highly active these days, I can visualize what this film might inspire. I can see Trump sitting in the White House's movie theater, his little hands reaching for popcorn, his little hands reaching for popcorn as he absorbs Dirt's screen adaptation. "This," he yells, "this is why we must invade." I don't think Cummins intended to write a novel that would serve a Trumpian agenda, but that's the danger of becoming a messiah. You never know who will follow you into the promised land. Again, the full post is linked below. I highly encourage you to go read it. And it was not just Myriam. Other reviews popped up by Latinx authors, by Mexican authors specifically, giving similar perspectives. There's another article I'm going to link down below in BuzzFeed News called American Dirt Tries to Pretend That Immigration Isn't Political by Julissa Acre. I'm going to link it down below, and I just wanted to read this one part towards the end. After 378 pages, we arrive in the United States and it seems all is right in the world. Luca goes to school. Lydia cleans houses because of course she does. But the reality is that for many immigrants, the journey starts anew when we set foot in the U.S. As author Reina Grande has poignantly written, unfortunately for us immigrants, the trauma doesn't end with a successful border crossing. I believe that for the rest of your life, you carry that border inside of you. Most of my pain as an immigrant came long after I entered the United States. The reality that college was not an option for undocumented students like me, no matter how well I had done in high school. I graduated in the top 5% of my class, stung deep in my heart. The pain of not being able to travel to Mexico when my father fell ill is something I will never recover from. I didn't get a chance to see him before he died. The angst of becoming a citizen, going through endless background checks, interviews, lawyers, court dates, took such a huge toll that my marriage ended. No, the freedom I now feel didn't come from stepping foot into the US. It's something I fight for every day. On the back cover of Cummins' book, publisher Flatiron Books blurb promises, American Dirt will leave readers utterly changed. But when readers are presented with characters that poorly reflect the real lives of people who are affected, not just by the dangers, economic conditions, and violence they are fleeing, but also the inhumane anti-immigrant laws they encounter once they cross the border, how can they truly be transformed? While the book continues to sell and we continue to have these discussions, let us not forget that the government still can't confirm if more families were separated than reported and if they have been reunited. Migrants and refugees haven't been afforded due process because of Trump's Remain in Mexico policy. DACA recipients still await their fate in this country, as the Supreme Court argues. ICE Acting Director Matthew Albence has confirmed that if the DACA program ends, dreamers can be deported. There are still tens of thousands of immigrants in detention. The wall continues to be built. American Dirt fails to humanize immigrants because its author was unwilling to face the real forces behind migration and the very real challenges migrants meet once they arrive in the United States. 142 writers signed an open letter to Oprah Winfrey after she did not want to remove American Dirt from her book club pick, but leave it as an opportunity to explore discussion from both sides. I'll link the letter below, but here's some highlights. Dear Oprah Winfrey, as writers from diverse backgrounds, we deeply appreciate your support for books and your lifting up of voices and authors. You have been and are a powerful force for good, a champion for justice, change, and literature. Thank you. In light of all the good that you have done, we believe American Dirt by Jeanine Cummins should not be honored as your book club pick. The book club provides a seal of approval that can still, we hope, be changed. As you might know by now, there has been widespread outcry from many writers, including Mexican American and other Latinx writers and thinkers, about the lack of complexity in this immigration story and the harm this book can and will do. Others have already written many critiques that very persuasively lay out the problems inherent to this book. There will be many more. One of the earliest critiques is written by Myriam. Parul Seghal also outlined her concerns about American Dirt in her recent review in the New York Times. I will also leave that below. In the informed opinions of many Mexican American and Latinx immigrant writers, American Dirt has not been imagined well or responsibly, nor has it been effectively researched. The book is widely and strongly believed to be exploitative, oversimplified, and ill-informed, too often erring on the side of trauma fetishization and sensationalization of migration and of Mexican life and culture. In addition, there are now accusations of heavy use of other Latinx writers' work, which I will come back to in a moment. As Cummins puts it in the author note to American Dirt, at worst we perceive migrants as an invading mob of resource-draining criminals, and at best a sort of helpless, impoverished, faceless brown mass clamoring for help at our doorstep. We seldom think of them as our fellow human beings. A painful central question arises: who is this we imagined by Cummins? Who is this them? We, the undersigned, do not see a faceless brown mass. We ourselves are not faceless, nor are we voiceless. I am really hoping that that will be like the key takeaway here, is that line by Cummins really said everything. Who is the we and who is the them? Asking those questions will really lead you to: who was this written for? Who was the we that she was hoping to reach? And who was the them that she was trying to humanize, but is it really her job to try to humanize a group of people who already have voices themselves? This letter is not written to attack Cummins, a fellow writer whose intentions we can't know, but good intentions do not make good literature, particularly not when the execution is so faulty and the outcome so harmful. Here's one example of ill-considered execution. Already at a celebratory American Dirt book party hosted by the novel's publisher with Cummins at the table, barbed wire centerpieces, like on the cover, were displayed as decorations. The machinery of U.S. immigration used as a festive adornment. Cummins publicized these photos herself with evident delight. These images are difficult to look at, and for those of us who have undergone migration, they are callous and insensitive. We can only imagine how many more such parties will take place if this novel continues its life as an Oprah book club pick. So number one, it did continue to be an Oprah book club pick.
My latest book club selection, American Dirt. This book stirred up a lot of controversy. You resisted because you thought you were the wrong color. We face it head on by confronting the tough questions.
Who did you write this book for? Because it wasn't a book for me.
Oprah, was this a wake-up call for you?
How many people felt your mind was changed, your heart was opened? We can do this without having to silence anyone. And we journeyed to the border to talk about the trauma of coming to America. We all know this is an inflammatory issue. Why should we care? There's a humanitarian crisis going on.
Yes.
And people just keep shopping.
Yes.
As though it's not happening. What this has done for me, it has opened my eyes in ways that only books can do.
Much of the conversation around this is still the same, where people have to explain over and over why this was not appropriate, why this was so insensitive. I mean, I am expecting to even have to do this in my own comments because that's what I see on reviews of American Dirt to this day, especially now that Jeanine Cummins is back in the cycle of conversation, which we will get to in a moment. Yes, the barbed wire centerpieces were real, and in fact, Janine's own tweets about them are still up. You can see them right here. Incredible way to kick off Book Expo 2019 last night with a Flatiron Books party and a bookseller dinner in honor of American Dirt. I'm overwhelmed with gratitude. Some white lady named Mary Beth said, "Is that barbed wire on the floral arrangements? It's just like your book jacket." Yes, Jeanine says. Well, it was barbed wire made of twigs, and they used the jacaranda flower I mentioned in the book. That's what I call attention to detail, right? Oh, Jeanine, no. So going back to the letter that mentioned certain parts of American Dirt being taken from other Latino writers, what they linked to was a Huffington Post piece written by David J. Schmidt, which says, "American Dirt isn't just bad, its best parts are cribbed from Latino writers. Plenty of authors have written authentic accounts of Mexico, but they weren't Oprah's book club pick." And that's a huge part of the problem here, is that a book that was not written by or for Mexican folks got to be an Oprah book club pick, got a 7-figure advance. David says, "When I first read a scene about a young boy being crushed to death by a garbage truck in the new novel American Dirt, it made me queasy. Not because of its graphic depiction or because the author Jeanine Cummins is not from Mexico, where the novel is set. What bothered me was the deja vu. I had read this scene before in Luis Alberto Urria's By the Lake of Sleeping Children, a nonfiction book that draws from Urria's years of humanitarian relief work in the most marginalized communities of Tijuana. Other scenes in American Dirt also significantly bear similarity to Urria's work and to that of Sonia Nazario, whose 2006 narrative nonfiction book Enrique's Journey tells the story of a boy who migrates from Honduras to the United States atop the freight train known as La Bestia. Cummins received significantly more preliminary publicity than those two authors, not to mention an advance of more than $1 million, according to Publishers Weekly, and she received it for a book that broadly imitates the existing works of these Latino authors, often poorly so. I don't believe any of Cummins' writing meets the legal definition of plagiarism. She was clever enough to sufficiently reword and reframe these elements, and credits to the authors as inspiration in her epilogue. Cummins also acknowledges that this real writer within the fictional world of her book, noting in one passage that Lydia knows a little about Las Colonias of Tijuana because she's read the books, because Luis Alberto Urria is one of her favorite writers, though it is not made clear that the scene is straight out of one of Urria's books. Moreover, several elements in her novel lean much more heavily on these pre-existing works than on any original research. Indeed, Cummins appears to have never visited some of her locations at all. Elements from other authors' works have been merged incongruously with the Mexico of Cummins' imagination. While some of these borrowed elements are comical, others are outright exploitative. I will leave this linked down below if you want to read the full thing. Jeanine's response to all of this can be found in an NPR piece, which I will play for you here.
Interview that never aired because the criticism of her book started coming down hard, and the conversation about the novel had to change. Latino writers in particular have eviscerated the book, including LA Times reporter Esmeralda Bermudez.
This book has left a lot of white readers with this very fuzzy feeling like, oh my God, about immigrants. And my skin is crawling. My skin is crawling.
You'll hear more from my conversation with Bermudez elsewhere in the show. In light of all the takedowns of the book, we called Jeanine Cummins back. She told me she has tried to avoid the criticism, especially on Twitter. So I shared some of what was being said. I do want to get into some of the details of the critique because it is so widespread, and I understand that you've tried not to engage in it. But we spoke with a writer from the LA Times, Esmeralda Bermudez, an immigrant herself, and she has said, and I'm quoting from a tweet thread, "American Dirt has left us with a textbook example of nearly everything we should avoid when writing about immigrants. It is hollow, harmful, an adrenaline-packed cartoon."
Okay. I don't know how to respond to this. Not everyone has to love my book. I endeavored to be incredibly culturally sensitive. I did the work. I did 5 years of research. The whole intention in my heart when I wrote this book was to try to upend the traditional stereotypes that I saw being very prevalent in our national dialogue. And I felt like there was room. I feel like there is room in the national dialogue for us to examine the humanity of the people involved in a much more intimate way. And people can decide for themselves whether they feel that I failed or succeeded in that endeavor, but that was my hope.
Do you think you were aware of your cultural blind spots as a white woman writing about this who has no personal experience as a migrant?
I think I was as aware of my cultural blind spots as I could be. I certainly centered them in my mind as I was writing. One of the things that I find deeply distressing and disappointing about the current tenor of this conversation is how, in the court of public opinion, I am the white lady now in this narrative. The fact is that I am a white person. I am a citizen of the United States. I am a person who has a very privileged life. I am also Puerto Rican. And that fact has been attacked and sidelined by people who, frankly, are attempting to police my identity.
Your grandmother's from Puerto Rico.
Yeah, and that was the ethnicity and the culture of my father. And no amount of vitriol on the internet can make that untrue. But I feel like I understand that voices of color and women's voices have been hijacked and devalued for a very long time. I am a person who has always hoped to be on the right side of those arguments. I wrote a book that I believe in. I wrote a book that I hoped would remind readers that any one of us could be migrants.
You did write an op-ed in the New York Times in 2015 saying that you didn't want to write about race. Quote, "I'm terrified of striking the wrong chord, of being vulnerable, of uncovering shameful ignorance in my psyche."
Yeah, that is that's one of the things that I've seen taken out of context over and over again in this conversation. But the fact is that whole essay is about me reckoning with race. And in that essay, I acknowledge that I am the beneficiary of white privilege. I am always examining my position in society and the positions of the people around me because I am deeply, deeply committed and interested in equality. And so it's particularly painful to be in the sort of crosshairs of this really, really big conversation. But I think, in some ways it's a conversation more about who gets the attention for their books.
Do you think there's a problem, an imbalance in
Oh,
the
absolutely.
publishing industry?
To be sure, yes. There is. Yeah, and that's not a problem that I can fix, nor is it a problem that I'm responsible for. All I can do is write the book that I believe in, and I did that.
Due to all of this, Jeanine's publisher, Flatiron, the president at the time, Bob Miller, I don't know if he's still the president of Flatiron, but he announced that they were canceling the book tour. Based on specific threats to booksellers and the author, we believe there exists real peril to their safety. He also addressed the controversy, saying, "The discussion around American Dirt has exposed deep inadequacies in how the publisher addresses diversity and representation." Miller apologized for specific issues people raised with the book and its rollout, including saying Cummins' husband was an undocumented immigrant without specifying he is from Ireland, and using barbed wire as decor at its bookseller dinner, matching part of the book's jacket design. We can now see how insensitive those and other decisions were, and we regret them. Myriam Gerba, along with author David Bowles and a journalist named Roberto Lovato, created the hashtag Dignidad Literaria, literary dignity, in response to all of this, in response to what was occurring not only in American Dirt, but beyond that in how publishing treats the Latina community, Latina authors. They had a call to action that said, "We call on Latinx writers, artists, and rebels to join us in staging actions coming this week. Inspired, angry, beautiful actions that will draw the nation's attention to a community of 60 million left off of bookshelves and out of the national dialogue. A community targeted because the humanity of our stories is still being muted." On February 3rd of 2020, representatives for Dignidad Literaria met in New York City with officials from Macmillan, who's the parent company of Flatiron Books. So Macmillan agreed to transform publishing practices and increase Latina books, Latina authors, Latina staff. So it has been 4.5 years since all of this, almost 5 years since all of this happened. So what are the updates? Well, currently, the Latina community, a large part of the Latina community in the book community in particular, recently saw that last month in September that Jeanine Cummins would be getting another book deal. Speak to Me of Home will follow 3 women coping of the aftermath of a hurricane, as in Hurricane Maria that hit Puerto Rico. Ruth living in New York, her daughter Daisy hospitalized in San Juan, and her mother Rafaela, who years ago had unwillingly moved away from Puerto Rico. And this one is being published by Henry Holt, which is also an imprint of Macmillan. So Macmillan, knowing that they had made promises and that there was all this controversy, still chose to keep publishing Jeanine Cummins. In a statement, Henry Holt said, "With this book, Cummins takes her storytelling to new heights as she chronicles the lives of 3 generations of women grappling with the consequences of a family secret. We cannot wait to share this remarkable story with readers around the world." Of writing this, Jeanine said, "The writing process for the new novel was a uniquely restorative experience," adding, "I always endeavor to write the book that might prompt readers to re-examine their convictions. In this case, I also wrote to rediscover my own. I am delighted with where I landed and can't wait for publication day." Sure, at first glance, it makes sense that she would want to write about her family's culture. Jeanine's grandmother is Puerto Rican, but much of the community is still side-eyeing this. I will read you some threads from one of my favorite authors, Silvia Moreno-Garcia, to sort of explain why people are approaching this and saying, it doesn't feel great still. In a thread where one person, Rowena Murillo, was explaining that they were uncomfortable with the way that people were talking about Jeanine Cummins because Jeanine Cummins is Puerto Rican via her grandmother. Sylvia responded to this, and Rowena said, "I understand what you're saying, but that wasn't the impression I was feeling as a white-skinned Latina with one beloved Puerto Rican grandma, and it's not the story I've been getting all my life about not really being Puerto Rican or passing. I even have it in my bio that I'm New Yorican because I don't want to misinterpret myself. This is part of what it means to be mixed, this kind of erasure. And even though she seems to be an awful person, she's not less Latina because of her awfulness." Sylvia explained, "There's several stories going on at once. I would say that I'm Mexican, but I've never felt comfortable writing, for example, about a second-generation person in California. I know very little about that subculture. When her book came out, it was branded as some kind of authentic expression of Mexican culture, and it turned out she knew very little about that culture. So people are feeling skeptical and even terrified about what she's now writing about Puerto Rico, considering her previous work." And that's an understandable concern. Sylvia had a couple other tweets because, again, publishing made all of these promises 4.5 years ago in the wake of this, in the wake of what Jeanine had done and how much she had gotten paid for it. And Sylvia expresses disappointment over this, and rightfully so. "After the American Dirt controversy, an editor had a meeting with me asking how they could better support Latino writers. I took this phone call because they were gathering feedback and wanted to do better. Later, I got a call saying all the changes they promised were on hold because of the pandemic. And in response to this, because this was a thread where Sylvia did bring up Jeanine Cummins, somebody said, why so much hate for Jeanine Cummins? Her grandmother's from Puerto Rico. I don't know why she's not allowed to write on behalf of her heritage like so many others. And again, it goes back to what Sylvia said in that other thread. She's writing about a very particular subculture and considering what she did with the very particular culture of an experience of a very particular Mexican woman that she wrote about. It's understandable that some people are like, I don't have any faith in Jeanine to do this. So Sylvia reposted this. What do you call it on Threads? It's not retweeting. Damn it. Didn't say I hated Cummings. I explained that 4 years ago, a publisher was launching initiatives to better support Latino authors after a controversy, that I was tapped for feedback, and then those initiatives were dropped supposedly because of COVID. I'm tired of helping publishers with diversity issues and then they don't follow through. I'm tired that Latino writers continue to be underrepresented, undervalued, even though they are a very large segment of the public publishers want to tap. A number of stories have been written recently about how publishing pledged to diversify, yet hasn't followed through. When I talk to influencers, to fellow writers, the overwhelming feeling is exhaustion. According to the latest Lee and Low diversity survey, it appears there's an actual decrease, minus 1.4%, in people who self-identify as Hispanic, Latino, Mexican at 4.6%. This decrease from both 2015, 6%, and 2019, 6%, is worth attending to across the field. This is enough of a loss to be considered significant. This report is an annual survey on publishing's workforce. It's not the only metric of success for Hispanic Latinos in the industry, but it is indeed troubling that we seem to be losing ground rather than gaining it. Jeanine Cummins is one writer, and by herself is meaningless, and despite all the talk about cancel culture, she was always going to get a second book. It was assured with the sales of the first one. What is meaningful is how after a controversy, publishing promised to do better, and really did not. It was always about good PR, of course, but I wish they'd at least spent some money on some grants or something for Latino writers. I think some really important threads I saw are good context to have here. One says, Jeanine Cummins is publishing a book about Hurricane Maria after the backlash of American Dirt, and it's sickening because it was announced today on the 7-year anniversary, as in the 7-year anniversary of Hurricane Maria. It's not her story to share, and you would have thought she would have learned after American Dirt. As a Puerto Rican who went through Hurricane Maria and still lives through the ramifications of such catastrophic event, all I have to say is that Jeanine Cummins can go straight to hell. It's not that she's not enough, as in Latina enough, it's because she stole from other authors and got a huge deal out of it. Just because the culture she writes in are speaking Spanish doesn't mean they are the same. The people of Puerto Rico have been under American control for decades, are born as American citizens, but come to the mainland and are treated like immigrants with American passports. The issue isn't she packed on the bronzer, it's the theft of other work. That's it. That's what happened with Jeanine Cummins. I keep putting a G on the end of her name when there is no G. Sorry, I can't say Cummins. I just can't do it. I can't make my mouth do that. Hello, Trash Can Rachel here. I don't know what happened I don't know what's happening now with my mouth. I don't know what happened here, but I just sort of short-circuited and just sort of stopped talking about Jeanine and was like, oh, I have a whole stack of Sylvia Moreno Garcia's books here. Why don't I just talk about how much I love Sylvia's books? And then I go on to talk about like Aiden Thomas's book and then Elizabeth Acevedo, like some of my favorite authors. So here's that. I don't know if you know this, but I'm kind of a big fan of Sylvia. These are all signed because I got to meet her last year for like 2 minutes and I got to watch her speak with my friend Carmen from Tomes and Textiles, who lives here in Tampa and is just like an incredible book advocate. She works on our library board, volunteers on our library board. I mean, it's work. She's on our library board, and Carmen is just incredible. Please go check her out. And Sylvia's book, this is one of my favorite books of all time. So this is an excuse for me to talk about how much I love Sylvia Moreno Garcia. I don't have a copy of her vampire one, but I have read that one too. I haven't read all of these, but I plan to. I love Sylvia. So please, please, please go check out and support Sylvia's books, especially this one. If you love Pride and Prejudice, but with like a little bit of magic and also drama, like more drama. Oh, this is so good. This is one of me and Carlos's favorite books. And it's not that long. It's less than 300 pages. It's a perfect book. It's a 5-star book. Please read it. Actually, I wasn't planning to do this, but since I'm talking about Sylvia and now I'm talking about my favorite books, let me talk about another favorite author of mine. Okay, well, I did find this one. Aiden Thomas is another Latina author. They wrote this incredible, a little bit spooky, but also a romance where this kid's a ghost, and it's about family and love and found family and being queer. Aiden, I have a signed oh, that's my address. Never mind. Okay. I have to not show my address. I'm not going to show this because it has addresses on it, but I got a signed thing from Aiden Thomas because I pre-ordered this, and it came with like these gorgeous tarot cards. Oh, sorry, I forgot I had the. This is another where it's like one of me and Carlos's favorite books, and this is getting a sequel soon. Okay, let me see what else I got in here, because I know I got more. This is crazy. I can't find it. I think I might have given all of my Elizabeth Acevedo books to my sister to borrow. Elizabeth Acevedo is one of the best writers of this generation, which is why she wrote a book about writing. She is one of the best writers of this generation. If you are trying to find a book by a Latina author, look no further than Elizabeth Acevedo. Publishing should be giving her the $1 million advances because her writing is perfect. It is perfect. With the Fire on High is written in prose, I believe, and has recipes, and it's about a teen mom who is trying to get a scholarship and win a cooking competition. She's like in a class and she loves cooking and she lives with her grandma, and it's so heartfelt and painful at times and just beautiful, like a beautiful story of like family and being a young mom and loving to cook and having like these deep connections to your family through food. Another one of hers is The Poet X, which is written in verse. Where is The Poet X? I have it. I've done a whole video on how it got banned. Anyways, The Poet X is about a girl named Xiomara, and she lives in a religious household where her mother is very hard on her, harder on her than her twin brother. And she's going through adolescence, and she's finding a boy that she likes, and she's learning to really express herself through poetry. And her mom is religious and doesn't want her to explain. And it's a story about her and her mom. Like they have a very hard relationship, but like towards the end, it's very beautiful how they learn to communicate more. We'll never understand why Elizabeth Acevedo's books get banned. That really pisses me off. It really pisses me off. Another one that she wrote is the airplane and the two sisters on the front. This one broke my heart. This is about two sisters who they didn't know about each other. One of them lives in the Dominican Republic and one lives in New York. They find out about each other. They're half sisters. They found out about each other after their father died. And it's about them coming to terms with who their father was and meeting each other and forming this relationship between each other. It's also written in verse. It's beautiful. It's a perfect book. There's nothing that she's ever written that I don't love. She also narrates her books often, and she sometimes narrates other books. So she narrated Pride by E.B. Savoy. This is just turning into I love Elizabeth Acevedo, and let me count the ways in front of you. I'm sorry. I truly love her so much. She narrated E.B. Savoy's Pride, and she did an immaculate job. Her voice is the most beautiful, soothing, perfect audiobook voice. So anyways, please read Elizabeth Acevedo and Sylvia Moreno Garcia. I can't believe I can't find any of my fucking books. That's really annoying. This is a sign that I desperately need to reorganize. Please leave your favorite Latina author down below, your favorite book written by a Latina author. And if you love Sylvia Moreno Garcia or Elizabeth Acevedo's books, tell me which one is your favorite, because oh my god, it's really hard for me to pick a favorite Elizabeth Acevedo book. Oh, I kind of lean towards With the Fire on High, just because like I'm a mom, she's a mom. I just really feel that part of that book, and I loved her love for cooking. I'm getting off topic again. I have to go now. I love her so much. Okay, let me know your favorite Elizabeth Acevedo or Sylvia Moreno Garcia book down below. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye. Before I go, I have to say thank you for being a friend to my Therapy Bills patrons, and those are Alexander, Ashley H, Astra, Brittany Bobitney, Call Me Kodiak, Cami, Choco's traumatized by that dang book, Chris the Horror Therapist, DJ Rocktopus, EK Casey, Ellie, Emerald Dodge, Aaron with 2 E's, Eric, Hey Mom, I'm Famous, Jess, John E, Kay, Kaleno K, Casey McKenzie, Kate W, Quinn, Lady Kittybug, Lemon Jelly, Lex, Lily B, Max B, Mixer Boneless, Alice, Panoramic Demon, Peggy Lou, Rain, Reese, Ree, SJ, Samar, Scarlet, Shiny, SMK, Spoopy, Steph, T Delegati, 2 Orbit, Umami Mommy, Urchin Audrey, White Raven 13, Zorvictia, Chai Guy. Thank you all so much for being here and for being a friend. And I have to say thank you for being a friend to my potato starch Marxist patrons. Wow, that's a mouthful. And those are AB Daniels Anaki, Alejandra, Ali Oxenfree, Alistair Althea, Amanda D, Andy, Angelica, Armadildo. That's a good one. Artie the Ninth, Ava, Ballads and Bookends, Beck, Blake Lemon Pants, Blythe Lavender, Bookish Brainrot, Bookish by Jenna, Bree Caitlin, Kate B, Caitlin P, Cardinal Ginger, Carlin, Carly, Casper, Kate, Catherine, Kathy, Claire Online, Colleen, Corwin, Cosmic, Darius, Danielle M, Darren, Desiree Michelle, Dilf Enthusiast, Dorian, Dorothea, Drive-By Thinker, Ebby, Emily A., Emma, Other Emma, Ezra Moon, Fiona McDonald, Forever a Boat, Francis Gadarn, GalaxyBot, Halia Artisan, Hannah Bunny, Hannah C., Harpy Kuro, JM Tennant, Jays on Olympus, Jelly V., Jen Michelle, Genderqueer, Jenny G., Jessa Sue, Jill, Jojo Bookish, Juicy Wizard, Kat, Catherine, Katie L., Katrina, Kaylee, Kayala, Kendra, KMTB, Laughing Cat Dog, Lauren G., Lazarus Ray, Library of Scars, Lindsay M., Lisa B., Lisa L., LP, Luciri, Lustful Octopus, Martin, Maddie, Madison, Man-Eating Plant, Marcella, Marquita, Megan, Malara, May, Mima Who, Molly, Never, Nicole G., Nicole R., Nyan Binary, Paige P., Paul, Penelope, Penny Chilling, Foxglove, Plague Carrier, Pandemonium, Queen Cereal, Rachel B., Reba, Rebecca, Rebecca R., Ronnie, Rosie Thorns, Rowan, Secoria, Saintbringer, Saki Alume, Sarah H., Sarah the Bear, Shamed, Shannon, Sean, Sophie, Talia, That Nerdy Mystic, Tiana, Too Thick to Work Today, Trash Can Teddy, Triple M, Tito Phoenix, Unicorn Jenny, Wobbs. If you don't tell me how to say that, I'm gonna cry. And Writer A, thank you all so much for being here and for being a friend.